What's going on, guys? Mangumson here, bringing another Path of Exile 2 video. And did you know that mastering time manipulation can drastically change your gameplay in Path of Exile 2? Imagine slowing down enemies while speeding up your own actions. In this video, you're going to learn how to create powerful Chronomancer build that allows you to manipulate time effectively in Path of Exile 2. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs on how to use it and what's niche about it and what's good about it. So, when it comes to the time freeze is a bit niche, has a small area of effect, stops enemies for a few seconds. Temporal Rift is going to be your ace in the hole to really feel like you're mastering time and space. While the crux of this build is basically focused around being a tri-elemental wizard of lightning, fire, and ice, I'm going to be able to show you what it's like to have plenty of options at your disposal while having everything to throw at the enemy, no matter what they may be weak against. But even though you may control space and time, getting caught in a bad position can leave you in a really bad spot. So the strengths and weaknesses of being a Chronomancer is that you don't have the magnitude output such as the Storm, Weaver, Caller ascendancy. The time freeze itself is a bit niche, and it does have its own set of problems right out the box. One of the things is when enemies push up against you, you're going to need this Arctic armor. This is the thing that I believe that many Chronomancers sleep on, as it provides you with an encasing of ice around your body in order to stop those melee attacks from coming in. Time freeze lacks permanence. Well, at least it does in early in-game. Frost Wall, Flame Wall, and Lightning Strike. These are going to be some of your main components when it comes to dealing with the magnitude of enemies that surround you in maps. That is the in-game mode. The Frost Wall is going to provide you with a good defensive barrier from enemies coming at you. It's going to be able to be formed in a font of mana and also into a font of blood. The font of mana is going to give you mana regen back. Font of blood is going to give you life back. And you're going to want to put either Glacier or Icicle on there depending on which one you want. For this build here, I use Glacier. Sometimes I switch it to Icicle. Now the Icicle itself lowers it by 50%, while Glacier increases the life of the glacial spike by 100%. This is key for if you are looking to destroy them or if you're looking to hide behind them. The Flame Wall is another big component, and we're going to need Flame Wall to form that fortress around those glacial spikes so they can't get through it and they can't get around it. This is going to lower the damage output of the Flame Wall in its totality, but it's going to provide more benefits. Drain Elements is going to consume a random element on the enemy, shock, freeze, or ignite, and then it's going to do extra damage. Arcane Surge is going to get you that boom of mana energy back when you spend a lot of energy using Flame Wall, which you'll be doing a lot, to create those Raging Spirits. These are persistent minions that last for a few seconds, but we want them to stick around just a little bit longer. So we're going to be putting a few buffs on them, which is going to help us eliminate more enemies. The Infernal Legion grants the minions to take a little bit of their life and transfer it into Ignite, because we want them to tap them with this Ignite damage to get the enemy burning. Next, we want the Culling Strike on them. That way, if we are away from the enemy or we can't get a hit in, the minions will do that for us. So Culling Strike kills enemies in certain ranges depending on if they're unique or normal enemy, but this one only kills rare and unique enemies. Maim slows the enemies down when they hit, as the persistent little Raging Spirits do a little bit of physical damage. And Last Gasp lets them stick around way longer than they should for 4 extra seconds when they get out of the picture. Now, when we do our Lightning Warp, this is going to be our ace in the hole to transmit shock everywhere at like in a large area, for that ground area effect. We're going to need Life Drain when we cull enemies, because Lightning Strike only triggers when we cull an enemy when they're kind of primed with that blue dot. Next, we're going to use Soul Drain to recover 12% of our mana over 4 seconds when we cull an enemy. This is going to allow us to get into the fight and start recouping health. This also works later with the Chronomancer. Next, we're going to do Shock Siphon, recover 4% of our energy shield when we deal a killing blow to a shocked enemy, which our Lightning Strike does, since we will be warping around and creating these shocked ground areas of effect for enemies to stay in and to walk through. And if you've been enjoying the video so far, how about you hit that subscribe button? It really helps out. Next, we're going to be looking at a few uniques here. We're going to be talking about the Earthbound Voltic Staff. I ended up getting it at a low level, but as you can see, granting you the skill Spark for free and triggering Spark skill on killing enemies. That's the big thing here for the unique. And it also, it triggers way more than you think that it does. It triggers almost all the time with your lightning warp, with your lightning bolt damage. You're going to get more bang for your buck out of this. And next, we're going to be talking about the jeweled gloves. I don't know how to say the name. I'm going to say the Kateko's current jeweled gloves. And lightning damage from hits contribute to electrocution buildup. This is huge. Electrocution buildup is when the enemies get electrocuted, they kind of stay still and they start doing this jittery movement where they can't perform any actions, right? So you're shocking the enemy, which grants you an extra 20% extra damage on the enemy, and they can't move as though you froze them with the electrocution buildup. Real huge, right? These two things combined are perfect. All right, after recording this part 5 times, I'm breaking down the passive tree. Timestamp to skip located in the description box below. If you don't want to hear me go over my passive skill tree, I think it takes a bit. So I'm going to be breaking down my skill tree right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so when we're talking about the Chronomancer's passive tree, we're going to start by taking the whole left side of that passive tree. This is going to get us the Temporal Rift, and this is going to get us the Time Freeze. This is going to be our two big base components that we're going to take. If we had other ascendancy points, we would take the whole right side, and then we'd get the area to where we could recoup things instead of waiting for them. They like recoup over 4 seconds, right? So the way that this is built out is to get us the maximum amount of elemental damage while granting us the maximum amount of mana at the same time. So at our beginning areas when we're moving up, we're taking primarily the left side. We're taking all that for the fire, the ice, and the lightning. We're getting those mana regens in the middle, and we're making our way over so we can get that X node right there, right? It's not really an X, it's more like a it's more like an X. So we're gonna get that one, and that's gonna give us the breath of lightning. It's gonna give us the breath of fire and the breath of ice. It's gonna give us that plus 10 strength, plus 10 dexterity, and then plus 10 to our intelligence. And then we're gonna be trying to work our way over to get that lightning node, because Lightning Bolt is a free skill that we're going to get with the Voltic Staff, or with any Voltic Staff really, and we're going to be utilizing that a lot. Next, we're going to try to make our way over to get that primary node right there, and that's going to give us extra 30% damage when we freeze, extra 30% when we ignite, extra 30% when we chill. And we're going to skip over that little like nothing node to get to where we're going, right? Because we're going to end up getting that whole square, no point in taking that nothing node. We're going to make our way up to the energy barrier area. Like everything else below that kind of is like energy barrier regen rate, but this is where we're getting some energy barrier like stacked on top of our energy barrier. If you wanted to do it in the reverse and go over there and get your energy barrier before you got your power, that's perfectly fine too. We have another elemental area which will grant us penetration of elemental damage versus enemies and grant us another 30% bonus there. So we're already looking at 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 120% elemental damage boost, along with gathering up some jeweled slot areas in order to kind of finalize our build. What we're ultimately looking for, because this is about at level 74, and we're looking to get either one of these 3 forked lightning area kind of deals. We're not forking lightning, but just, you know, the way it looks like a pitchfork. We're either going to get the one that's going to give us extra cold damage as lightning damage, or it's going to grant our lightning damage cold damage, or we're going to get one to chain lightning, or we're going to get the one that's going to increase the amount of shock we got going on. Next, we could end up going back over to that node of elemental damage penetrating and gather a few nodes over there if you like, but we're looking to get these right here with the skill effect duration. Now, my ultimate goal was to try to move upwards past that forked area to the next forked area to try to get that skill duration located up at the top right hand cornerish. Now, ultimately, if you have the points for it, if you make it that high, you have like the best gear, you're clearing through maps and all that stuff, then you're gonna want to get this skill duration. Other than that, you're probably gonna want a more close to home type of skill effect duration. So what I suggest is when you come back this way, right? At, like I said, level 70 to 80, you're gonna finish getting your energy shield nodes, which is going to allow you to recoup 2 points going that way. That way you can repurpose those points into another part of the tree, saving you a little bit of headache, right? So you're going to want mind over matter. You're going to want to get that sooner than later versus going around to get that node of grabbing the energy shield, because you're really going to want the mind over matter, because you don't want your health to be touched at all when it comes to the survivability of a tri-elemental sorcerer. Now, if you ended up taking all those back, if you don't go all the way up that way, and you don't try to reach for the moon when it comes to that, you can come down to where the witch's skills are, and that's going to give you more into the realm of hindering. So you can get increased slow effect when hindered enemies. This is going into a temporal chains, blasphemy type of get down, and that's going to be replacing like the Frost Nova in the build. And the temporal chains is just going to add to the damage and add to your overall time stop. As of right now, I'm using Frost Nova as I don't have the spirit in order to get the blasphemy, in order to equip temporal chains. So it's going to take 60 spirit, and Frost Nova doesn't cost any spirit. And then eventually, if you make your way up into the 90s, you can go back and reach for the stars up there, and that's going to like capitalize or finish out the builds, because you want to get that middle one that's in the fork. When you go up that way, you're going to get spell damage equal to the amount of mana that you got. So you're looking at the skill effect duration over there on the left side below that elemental gathering. You can take back some of those points if you want. You can kind of stop where I stopped at before I got those other nodes, granting you 3-4 more points back in order to get some hindering ability or some slow effect magnitude, or it's like skill effect duration, like put on your build, so that your effective time stop will last longer. And what we're trying to gather together with all this is we're trying to get up to 90%, 91% skill effect duration, and that's going to make our time freeze last upwards to 10 to 12 seconds. And then you can come back and try to get those other skill effect durations, or just go down there to the witches area, get the skill effect duration versus everything else. Now, this is going to come back to a point of contention when it comes to Incinerate, because Incinerate, again, it's not a hit, but it does do a good amount of damage to the enemies. Ember Fuselage is another slept on fire skill. Everyone likes to use Fireball, but Ember Fuselage does have its perks too. Ice Nova, again, is in the build to get those enemies off of you. Again, I would replace this later with Blasphemy and Temporal Chains. And the Incinerate, a lot of enemies do like to walk in front of you when you are playing maps. They just like kind of like rush in front of you. So if you have more AoE effect, if you have more skill attack speed, then this is going to play into concentration to where your supported skills are going to do 40% more damage. The Frostfire, since you're going to be wearing that ice armor, you're going to be hitting the enemies with your Incinerate, dealing 100% more damage. And then you're going to be utilizing the fiery explosion to deal damage to the enemies while they're in front of you. Now the Ember Fuselage, it's kind of weird. Once you push the button, you're going to make 2 of these Ember Fuselages. And then if you have on the supporting skill gems that I'm going to go over here shortly, which is Scattershot. Scattershot allows you to deal 20% less damage, fire 2 additional projectiles. Considered casting, less cast speed, supported skill is going to do 40% more damage, right? So it's going to bring us back up from what we just had before. And Unleash is going to grant you 2 Ember Fuselages on top of the 2 that you already generate, granting you 4 or 5, bringing us up to almost that max number that we can get. When utilizing our Frost Nova, we have Inevitable Critical. Every second that passes, it gives us an extra 25% chance up to 100% in order until we get a critical hit. Then we have Mana Flare. Mana Flare will trigger on a critical hit, and then that will do fire damage to the enemy utilizing the cold skill. And then attached to that at the end, I didn't put it on the screen, but I do have execute, and with the execute it does do an extra 40% damage to enemies when they're low on life, which is below 35%. Now, one thing that's taking the most of our spirit is going to be the elemental conflicts. You're going to be putting on the mastery skills to boost up your mastery with that. And then the fire, the lightning, and the ice is all complete for the tri-elemental sorcerer. And if you made it this far, hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be putting out more videos like this for PoE 2. And hopefully you guys come back to check those out too. All right, now we're going to get into the demonstration for the video. Hopefully you guys like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.